Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Grounded Masculine podcast with me, your host, Finn McKenna Fox. So today I'm super excited to be able to jump into this solo episode to talk about the importance of looking after yourself first so that you can look after those around you. For myself, this is something that I have had to do a lot of work on personally. And it's one of the things that I see quite often with a lot of the guys that I support, a lot of the fathers that I support, where we get caught in that trap of doing everything for everybody else and leaving ourselves last. Hands up if you can relate. Because it's one of the things is like as a father, there could be so many different things going on for ourselves. And especially when we see our partners might be struggling and our kids want our attention because we're away from them so much with work and all of these other things, it can really pull on our heartstrings to feel that we need to be so present. We need to be there continuously for them. And that is something that can pull us away from actually doing things for ourselves to look after ourselves and to manage our own well-being as well. And for me, this was one of the biggest catalysts for myself on this journey. So for you guys who've been listening to this for quite a while who know my journey, for anyone who's new to this, to give a little bit of a backstory for myself was coming from a sports physio background, been working in that for the last, like was qualified in that about 15 years ago, always been in the health and wellness industry and went deep in a journey into my own personal development for a long time at the start. But it was one of the things I was always looking at bringing in more of the positive, more of the nice, more of the spirituality, the well-being, that side of things without actually looking deep into my shit, looking deep into my shadows and all of that stuff. And it wasn't until it became apparent that a lot of stuff came to surface for myself because, again, I was looking at bringing in all of these practices that were really nourishing for myself without actually looking at the shitty patterns that were underlying all of the stuff. And for anyone who is a father, as soon as you become a father, it's like your time gets changed a lot, your identity changes a lot. You don't have as much time, space, and capacity to do things for yourself that you would have done previously. You don't want to do that because you want to be more with your family and stuff like that as well. So for myself, like I went through a massive identity crisis where I lost so much of myself. I didn't have the time and space to do all of the things that were keeping myself in a good space because I wanted to be more present for my kids and more present for my kid, more present for my wife, and all of that. But in doing so, that put me into a pattern where there's more and more and more of that stuff started coming to the surface. But again, like everything, as stuff was coming to the surface, I was really good at pushing it down, putting on a brave face, doing the bare minimum to get by. But really, behind closed doors, I was breaking. And it's one of them things is like coming from that people pleaser mentality, coming from wanting to go above and beyond to help other people around me for that wanting that need of validation for that. Like these are all of these different things that I have learned of since then that was happening for myself. Like I was doing everything for everybody else without doing things for myself. I was there so much for my wife, I was there so much for my daughter. I was there so much for my clients, for my friends, but I wasn't there so much for myself. And there's only a certain length of time that that can continuously happen before we hit that breaking point. And for me, that happened, unfortunately, and or fortunately, because that was a big, massive turning point for myself. And that was what put me deeper on this path of my own journey. And that's what allowed me to then start working on a lot of my own shit and a lot of things that were holding me up and a lot of them patterns that I was so unaware of that were just in these loops. And again, going back to that whole idea is like you can't look after somebody else until you look after yourself first. Like this was when it started to really come into play for myself. And this is where I want you to start understanding and just start getting inquisitive of what that journey might look like for yourself. So if you're someone who feels that you do a lot for everybody else, you don't have any time and space left for yourself, you feel resentful even towards your partner sometimes, or like you feel like you've let your health drop because you don't have that time and space to exercise or eat or whatever the things were for yourself that really were nourishing for yourself. You just don't have that time and space and capacity to do that anymore. And with the work stress, with the family stress, with the financial stress, with all of these other things that are piling up on top of us, it can really start wearing us down. And it's one of the things that sadly you see time and time again with so many of the guys that I work with is like we're just moving through life and we're not actually able to enjoy all of the beauty of it because there's so much of this pressure, so much of this heaviness on us, so much of this expectations on us, and we're just in this survival mode. and we're doing everything for our family. We're doing all of these stuff. We've got all of these pressures and expectations on us from the people around us. And we just want to be able to catch a breather for ourselves. We want to be able to find that joy again, find that spark again within ourselves, but we just don't know how. So one of this is what I want to cover a little bit deeper into this and kind of understand for yourselves that if you are feeling that way, the first thing you need to understand is that you are not alone. Because everything that I've been saying is what I went through and what so many other fucking guys that I have worked with over the last 5, 6 years have gone through themselves in some shape or form. And guaranteed there's other guys around you, some of your mates are probably experiencing aspects of that as well, but you mightn't just talk about that because that's not what the friendship is. But it's one of the things that you need to see as a father that everything's not rosy for everybody. We're all going through our shit. We all have stuff going on that we would love to improve, we would love to work on, but a lot of us aren't actually willing to make the change. And this is the big turning point. This is the thing that changes for so many people is those that are willing to actually do something different, willing to actually start looking after themselves in a different way, investing themselves in a different way. That's where we can start breaking through some of these patterns and start creating a new reality for themselves. And like, and that's the work that I absolutely love doing, being able to support guys on this journey to shine the light on these areas that they were completely oblivious to, the patterns that were just keeping them going around in these cycles over and over again. To be able to start breaking through that, to be able to start learning the tools that you can use and develop for yourself on a day-to-day basis that fits in with your busy life, that allows you to start looking after yourself more so that you can look after those around you. But for a lot of people, like there's a lot of things that we need to do before we get to that spot. So let's dive into like looking at that and breaking that down a little bit. So the first thing is that I want to look at is if you are relating to this in some shape or form, if you can see some of these patterns playing out for yourself where you do a lot of things for everyone else, if you were a people pleaser, it's looking at one of the things is like start looking and start questioning. It's like, right, what was going on for myself in my past, my childhood, my upbringing, my relationships that fed that need for that people pleaser so often is like we fall into that people pleaser. It can be one of two things. It can be coming from a nervous system response. That could be your default nervous system response when you feel that stress, when you feel like you're in a stressful situation, your body goes into shutdown. That's where we go into fight, fright, freeze, or fight, fright, freeze, or fawn response. The four Fs. That's where we go into these nervous system responses to get our bodies into a safer space to deal with the stress that is around us. And like that fourth one, that fawn response is the people pleaser response because that is a nervous system response that you fall into to do everything for everybody else, make sure everyone is okay, make sure you're trying to like be everyone's best friend to look after and to try to create safety. Like because if I'm looking after these people, if I'm looking after this, if I'm looking after this, is if everyone's really happy, then that's going to create more safety. I'm going to feel more safe with inside of myself. We're not doing anything to cause people to go into aggravation or frustration or any of that stuff. We're really trying to just make people happy. We're suppressing our own shit to make everyone else happy around us. So that thing is going to minimize and reduce the stress. Sorry, just had a little technical error there. So I'm back. So yeah, so we're covering with that people pleaser, how we fall into that people pleaser. It can be that fawn response when we are in a stressful situation. And another reason why we can fall into that people pleaser role, it can be coming from other aspects of our childhood, our family dynamics, relationships, stuff like that as well, where it's a way of seeking validation, where we may feel that we need to fall into this people pleaser role to be seen, to be heard, to be loved. And like again, so much of this can come from like so much of conditioning and everything like that from our past. But again, this is something that I myself have experienced as well as a lot of people that I have worked with that fall into that people pleaser role is understanding is like they fall into that pattern because of that they felt that's what they needed to do to feel safer, to feel loved, or to feel connected to somebody whenever they were growing up. And then that has just built a pattern for them, that has built a mechanism for them. And then that's what we just fall into continuously and just build, build, build. And then that's when a belief system has been so locked in that that's just how we show up on a day-to-day basis. So for yourself, if you're listening to this and like again, you do find yourself like giving to everybody else without giving to yourself, you find yourself burning out because of that. You find that you feel guilty doing stuff for yourself. Like these are all really important things that you can start looking at for yourself. So one, look at your nervous system response, does that fall into play more so when you feel like there's stress going on in your body? Or do you feel that it is something more, a little bit more deeper from childhood, from like that's how you had to behave for you to be seen or for you to feel loved or for you to feel worthy and stuff like that as well? And like whatever one it is for yourself, like just start looking at how you can start bringing that into awareness more for yourself and how you can start telling yourself and showing yourself that by actually looking after yourself first, that by finding that self-worth, that self-value within yourself, it's going to be so much more powerful coming through. And then how that's going to allow you to show up for yourself and show up for those around you is going to be so different. So again, it can take a lot of work to get to that point, but it's having the first step of the awareness and starting to look at and understanding why you do what you do is going to be the stepping stones to start making these changes come in a lot more. Then when we look at that as well, it's that old story of I don't have any time to do things for myself or feel guilty doing things for myself or like I need to make sure everyone else is safe, everyone else is looked after, and then I could just like you feel like you're just burnt out at the end of the day. It's like how many guys can fall into that pattern where at the end of the day, like you feel like all can do is just sit and have a quick scroll on your social media or have a couple of beers and watch a movie or whatever that might be for yourself. So often, like we have just allowed ourselves to fall into these shitty patterns that are just keeping us in that rhythm over and over and over again. And it's really hard to break that. And again, to share my story with it, it's like for myself, like I used to always fall into this story. It's like I don't have time to exercise. So when stuff gets really busy, when like Shona's not doing well, or when there's stuff happening with the kids, like I would always drop everything for myself to then make sure I'm looking after them. I would drop things in work. I would drop my training. I would drop my own self-care. I would drop everything for myself to look after them. And again, one, that was a nervous system response, but it was also that I need to make sure they're all okay because then that means they're going to love me was a deeper story that was going on for myself. Like when you say it out loud, it's fucking nuts when you think about it because you know it's not true, but it's such a deep level condition that has been brought up in us for so long. Whereas when we start looking at that and catching ourselves, oh, this is what I want to do, it's looking at us like, right, how can I actually start breaking this pattern? What can I do to start supporting myself differently with that? So again, to go and share more of my own story with this and showing how this has showed up in my life and how I've been able to break through this. Three of the main steps that I have used is first things first is removing that guilt of giving to myself. The second step is then becoming super aware of my shitty patterns. And then the third step is create a code that I live by. So this is again stepping more into that high masculine energy, stepping more into my masculine leadership, high, healthy masculine dominance for myself, rather than just kind of falling into the more of that feminine energy, that nurturer, that like that loving, caring, nurturing energy. It's being more grounded in my healthy masculine, so that then I can hold everyone around me. So again, because if you think about that again, listen back to the masculine feminine dynamics, as if this is talking completely cuckoo for you. But when we look back at the masculine and feminine, it's like by doing things for yourself, by looking after yourself, by making sure you are regulated, you are calm, you are present, you are grounded. That is going to be such an energy that is going to hold everyone else in your family so much better. So they're going to feel that they can melt into their feminine. They can feel that they are held safe, secure, and loved with doing that. Whereas if you're not doing anything for yourself, if you're not grounded in your masculine, if you're frantic all over the place, then they're going to feel really unsettled as well. So it's going to keep this vicious cycle coming for longer and longer and longer. So again, when we look at them three steps, is the first one things first is learning how to remove the guilt of giving to yourself. So again, if you are a people pleaser, if you do everything for everyone else, more than likely you're holding a lot of guilt for doing things for yourself. Like again, it's like so often like as a father, as like many of us, we work 40, 50 hours a week. Where with the commute and everything on top of that. And then like and that the missus is home with the kids and they're pulling the weight a lot more with doing stuff around the household with the kids, with all of that stuff more. So then when you're home, like you probably want to be with your kids more. You want to help out around the house more. Your kids are probably wanting to want you more. Like you're the fun dad that comes in. Whereas your mum, the mother is often feeling pretty stressed in that space. And again, these are just some of the typical, some like the just generalized ideas of what a typical family can look like. So it's one of them things is for you being away for so long and then coming home to then it's like, oh, I'm heading out here to play some football, or I'm going out to the gym here, or I'm doing X, Y, or Z. Like that can be really hard because if you feel really guilty for that, that's going to be really difficult within the family situation, how that goes down. But also is like if you're not owning that in yourself and you're doing like and communicating in a really healthy way with your partner, like they might be triggered as all hell because of it as well. So this is where it's looking at how we can start building things in for ourselves that's just going to support ourselves, but which is also going to support our partner. But like again, that first step is removing that guilt of self-care, removing that guilt of doing the things that you need to do for yourself. And again, the other thing is like not being a dick about taking the piss with it as well. It's being realistic of like where your partner is, where their needs are, and where you are and where your needs are, and how you can find that happy balance for both of you to get the support, for both of you to get the nourishment that you need to be able to move from that survival to that thriving. So the first things first is when you look at that, removing the guilt. It's breaking down that story is like, I'm feeling really stressed. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't have any time and space for myself. It's like I want to do something for myself, but then I feel really guilty for doing it. So then you feel guilty for doing it. If you do it, you feel really guilty, and then you bring that energy into the household, and like no one's getting the benefit of that because you've done something that was good for yourself, but you feel guilty, and then you come back and you feel guilty, and you bring that energy into the household, and like there's going to be fucking resentment coming back at you. You're going to bring like that's going to have a big impact of the energy from that coming back into the family dynamic. Whereas this, and then on the other flip side of that is if you are feeling stressed, overwhelmed, you want to do something for yourself, you feel guilty for doing something for yourself, so you don't do something for yourself, and you just keep doing what you've always been doing, looking after everybody else. You're going to have be the one that's got the resentment. You're going to be the one that's feeling even more stressed. You're probably going to get a lot more reactive with your kids, with your partner. You're not going to be present. You're not going to be calm. You're not going to be grounded because you need that space for yourself, whatever that might be. So, like, again, it's like both of them, by being guilty, both of them is actually having a negative impact on the whole situation. So like, and it's one of the things. So when you can start learning to, by me actually doing for something for myself, is going to help me be more grounded. It's going to help me be more present and connected within myself. So then when you bring that energy into the household, you're going to be that rock for your family, and that rock, that anchor is going to be able to hold your family so much better. And they're going to know who you are. They're going to know what energy you're coming into. They're going to be able to start feeling more calm, more safe, more secure, and more held and loved and nourished from you because you're more of a constant in how you are showing up. And then by doing so, then that's going to actually decrease a lot of the stress, a lot of the noise, a lot of the bullshit that goes on in the household dynamic. So then that's going to help keep this really positive cycle and this positive dynamic going on. And as you're doing this for yourself, as you're looking after yourself, nourishing yourself, you're communicating this with your partner, and you're inviting her to do the same for herself. Like this is where you're going to create so much more harmony within the family unit. Whereas if we don't do that, that's where we just keep repeating this patterns. It just feels like that Groundhog Day. Everyone's just continuously triggered, stressed, overwhelmed, emotional, and it's not really that fun for anyone. So again, that's where by looking at removing that guilt for doing things for yourself, how much more of a positive impact that's going to have on you and how you show up in your family and how your family feel on a day-to-day basis. That is why it's actually so important for you to do the things for yourself. So then the next step that need to look at is becoming really aware of what our patterns are when we are feeling stressed, when we're feeling overwhelmed, where we're just caught up in the busyness of life, and we feel like we're doing all of these other things for everybody else, and everything's just that bit of a churn, this bit of a strain for ourselves. And so often it's like this is when we can fall into some patterns of just comfort, patterns of ease. So it's where it's really important to start looking at what them patterns are for you when you fall into that space. Because again, it's like when you're being pulled left, right, and center, you're showing up and being everything for everybody else, and you're neglecting yourself. When you're neglecting yourself and that continues for a period of time, you're going to self-soothe however you self-soothe. So you're going to start looking after yourself and start you falling into what your dysregulated patterns are for yourself to help you get through day-to-day life. And that might be you start scrolling more on social media because you're looking for that quick little dopamine hit. You're looking for that numbing. You're looking for that avoidance. It could be you're staying up late because you just need that bit of time and space for yourself away from everyone else. But when you stay up late, you're watching Netflix and eating shit, maybe having a couple of beers as well. It could be coming towards the weekend where it's like, oh, let's crack open the beers or have a couple of glasses of wine because that's your way to de-stress and unwind after the craziness of everything else. It could be you reach to porn. It could be you reach to drugs. It could be whatever that crutch is for yourself, whatever them shitty patterns are for yourself that you reach to self-soothe, to help just get yourself by on a day-to-day basis. Like it's starting to become really aware of what them patterns are. Because guaranteed is like when you're doing all of these other things for everyone else, you don't have the time and space and energy and capacity or the bandwidth to do the healthy, nourishing things for yourself. And you're always going to fall into a default. I'm not doing the healthy things for myself, but I'm doing something for myself. And again, for me to relate to my story, I could see this so clearly. It's like when we would go through like a crazy period in the house, and then I would start neglecting my exercise because I don't have time to exercise. I don't have the time to prep the right foods and wouldn't be doing the walks in nature and meditation or the journal and all of that stuff because I don't have the time and space, the capacity to do that. I need to look after everybody else. But then I'd be feeling really tired and really cranky and burnt out. So then that's where I would oh, I've got a minute when everyone's in bed. I'd sit up and do what I was saying. It's like have a glass of wine, stay up too late watching shit on Netflix. I would be spending more time throughout the day checking out, just scrolling on Netflix or on my phone and social media and stuff. Like these would be the things that I would fall into within that. Whereas like I didn't have time to exercise, but if I counted up all the time that I was wasting with all of these other things, that was just keeping my energy down, keeping me stuck in this loop which wasn't helping anybody. And that's where we get caught in these cycles and patterns. So this is where it's imperative to get be really aware of what them patterns are for yourself, because we're always going to fall into something. And then the third step is once you have looked at removing that guilt of giving to yourself, open to communication with your partner, then you are starting to become really aware of what your default go-to patterns are when life does get crazy and you tend to want to fall off doing the healthful things for yourself and fall into them self-soothing mechanisms. You're starting to become really aware of them. Look at what you can do to create a code. Like, what is your code? What is your daily non-negotiables, your bare minimums that you're doing for yourself to nourish yourself? So again, for me, this has been the biggest fucking game changer in the last year for myself because again, it's up until the last year where I would navigate these patterns. I would catch things a lot sooner, but I would fall off the bandwagon for maybe a few weeks and then I would finally pull myself back up. But in the last year, I've been on the ball so much and I haven't allowed myself to fall into them shitty patterns so much because I've done exactly what I'm speaking into. I have specially lived by my code. Like if you're following on my socials, like I'm on day 300 and fucking 20 something of every single day. I've done some sort of form of exercise, some form of workout for myself. And like I'm journaling on pretty most every single day, twice a day. Some days I'm missing one of them. So an odd day that I might miss both. But like as a whole, is like I'm burning through journals because I'm journaling morning and night as a tool to check in what's going on up here, organize myself, figure out myself a lot more, and be more aware of my emotions. Like all the things I'm doing is like really locking in with my morning practice, with my breathing, getting up at a certain time, having 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to do some breathing exercises to just kind of check back in with myself and just nourish myself in that way. Like they're the three big things that I've been really focusing on, and then like food and hydration and sleep are the other staples that I'm really trying, really have put so much effort and energy into keeping aligned for myself over the last 300 whatever days. And by doing so, this has been hands down the hardest fucking year of my life, our life as a family. Transitioning from Australia to Ireland, trying to figure out life in Ireland and everything that's been going on here, navigating all of the challenges within that, with being back with family, navigating all the challenges of kids settling in and family settling in, and like and just everyone just being in this big messy soup, and then welcoming in a fourth child on top of that, and heaps of other stuff. So it has stretched me beyond, but again with this, by embodying all of this work that I'm saying to you, embodying everything that I'm saying to you, by working on this, by living by my code, I've been able to navigate this with so much more fucking ease compared to what I would have done. This would have burnt me out. I would have been crashed and burnt long ago, many times over, if it wasn't for doing this and implementing this and taking action on this. And this is me showing and telling you that this is why it's so fucking important to create that code for yourself and be realistic of what that code looks like. Because that is the action that is so fucking important. Like if you listen to me on socials, if you listen back to all our episodes, like one of the big principles is awareness without action is fucking useless. You can be super aware of the patterns. You can be super aware of all your different attachment styles and this and that and all of the other jargon that is spitted out in social media. But if you're not taking any action, if you're not doing something differently, nothing's gonna fucking change. So this is where most people actually fall down on all of this. And this is the one big thing I want you to take home is, yes, look at everything that I've been speaking into, looking at why you do this in the first place, like why you fall into that people pleaser role, why you're looking after everybody else. Look at all of that stuff is really important. It's looking at removing the guilt. It's really important. It's looking at your patterns because that's really important. But what is most important and what is actually going to change the game for you is that code that you create and that code that you start to live by. And this is one of the reasons why I'm saying is nothing changes until you change. Because none of this shit is going to change until you start changing what you do on a day-to-day basis. And as you show up for yourself each and every single day, that is you starting to create new evidence for yourself. That is you starting to rewrite your story of who it is that you be, how it is that you should choose to show up. And this is one of the hardest things most people actually struggle with, is that consistency, that discipline, and showing up for themselves in a healthy way. But it is the one that is going to absolutely transform so much of yourself and so much of your relationship. So again, I know there's been a lot of different things spoken into here. I've referred back to a couple of different podcast episodes that are speaking into with the nervous system. Like I'll put a couple of bits and pieces in the show notes and stuff here, a few other ones that I recommend. I've got another podcast that I'm going to be recording in a week or two's time that's going to be going another layer deeper into some of the stuff that I've been speaking into here as well. But I want you to just to really look at this and understand that as you're going through whatever challenges that you're going through as a father, you're not alone. Guaranteed there's a lot of men around there who are feeling the same feelings that you're feeling, who are experiencing the similar struggles that you're experiencing. And it's one of the things is why this is why I'm so open about sharing my own lived experiences, sharing my own lived like challenges and what I have used to move through this and what I have been able to create the foundations, the fundamentals, the frameworks that I have used to support many other fathers just like you to start breaking these patterns down, to start making these healthy changes for themselves. Because when we start reaching out, when we start having support, when we have the right people in our corner, it makes this journey so much fucking easier because you don't have to do it alone. And this is why one of the reasons why I'm working really hard in the background creating this the ground of father membership, the ground of father movement for guys just like you. To be able to have a space where you can come together, where you can meet other men on this similar journey, where you can listen to their stories, where you can start learning these frameworks and be in a community of other supportive fathers to help you every single step of the way. So if this is something that sounds interesting for yourself, then drop me a message and just let me know grounded father and I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about the details of what that's looking like. But if you've got any other questions and anything that we covered today, again, shoot me a message at finn@thegroundedmasculine.com.au or else on the social media. Like shoot me a message, any questions that you might have at all. And just the biggest thing is just know that you're not alone and know that by starting to take some action for yourself, even how no matter it might be the smallest, simplest little thing, by doing something different than you're already doing, that's where you're starting to take that first step forward for yourself. And then it's just a matter of looking, it's like, how can I take another step tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow? And as you keep building on that, that is where the change is going to start coming in. And that is, at the end of the day, the name of the game here. So I'm going to wrap it up. Going to leave it here from now. Hope you enjoyed that episode. If there is another father that you feel like would really benefit from this, or even get your missus to listen to this as well, like I think it's one of the beautiful things I know from like doing this work for so long. It's like when couples listen to similar episodes, when couples listen to the different trainings that I do in my programs and stuff together, like that just allows them to come together so much deeper and like allows them to actually understand how they can support each other in this journey. It's really mid as well. So that's a really cool one. But as always, have a beautiful day and remember, nothing changes until you change.